In this video, I paint a tiny scuba diver and unintentionally create Niagara Falls. I'm the scale model Geek, and in this build I was inspired by a poster from a movie that was released back in 1978 called Jaws. When I originally saw this movie in theatres, it scared the living daylights out of me that I've never seen it since. I didn't want to do a direct copy of the movie poster, so I wanted to give it my own little spin. Instead of a swimmer, I'm using this scuba diver, and instead of the shark, I'm using a giant kraken or a squid. I bought this 3D file of CG Trader. It was only about $10, and then printed it out on my Elegoo printer. For the tentacles, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to play around with my filament printer. I found these free files on Thingiverse, downloaded and did some modifications. After a few hours of printing, I just wasn't happy with the quality of the work. I had seen a couple of videos from Adam Savage of Mythbusters fame, and he was raving on about this Bambu Lab printer, so I thought it was time for an upgrade. The Bambu Lab A1 with the combo add-on is a state-of-the-art 3D printer designed to offer high performance, versatility and ease of use. Renowned for its speed and precision, this printer is a great fit for both hobbyists and professionals who require top-notch results. One of its standout features is its high-speed printing capability, allowing users to produce models rapidly without compromising on quality. Another notable feature is the automatic bed leveling system, which takes the hassle out of manual calibration. The printer adjusts itself to ensure consistent and accurate prints regardless of the material being used. With a large build volume, the A1 gives users the flexibility to create larger models. The Bambu Lab A1 comes with a user-friendly touchscreen interface, making it easy to adjust settings, monitor progress and manage your prints. Its Wi-Fi connectivity allows for remote printing, giving users the convenience of sending print jobs from a computer or smartphone. The Automatic Material System, AMS, enables multi-material and multi-color printing, seamlessly switching between filaments as needed. The Bambu Lab A1 3D printer's hot end is a key component designed for efficiency, precision and versatility. Many Bambu Lab hot ends, including the A1, are made with durable all-metal construction. This design ensures longevity and reduces wear, particularly when printing at high temperatures or with abrasive materials. The A1's hot end allows for easy nozzle swapping, giving users the flexibility to switch between different nozzle sizes. The combo add-on also expands the A1's compatibility with a variety of filament types, including flexible filaments and engineering-grade plastics. The Bambu Lab A1 with the combo add-on delivers a premium 3D printing experience combining speed, precision and the ability to handle multi-material prints with ease, all while being user-friendly and energy efficient. So what does that actually mean in the real world? Well, for me, it's simply a printer needs to be really easy to use first go. The calibration is a one-click situation through the touchscreen. Once I installed the software, which is Bambu Labs, I then selected the type of printer model that I have, which is obviously the A1. Now, this is the very first result, and you can see it's a little bit rough because I had actually changed the nozzle size and I didn't adjust that in the software. So I changed it to 0.2, and this is such a difference. It actually came out fantastic. I even was able to change over the filament during the printing process, and now I can see what Adam Savage was raving on about. The print result is just great. Normally I use Ultimaker for my other 3D filament printer, and when I saw that I had to use Bambu Labs, I thought, oh no, here we go again, another software I've got to learn. Turns out Bambu Labs is actually really easy to pick up. It's very intuitive. Once I imported the Tentacles STL files, it was a matter of orientating those models just so I can print them using supports. I also enlarged the size of those models to 150%. As I was adjusting this model, I was trying to work out in my head which orientation I could use that'll use the least amount of supports and still be stable and strong adhered to the plate as well. Because you don't want it falling off or going bonkers anytime during, I think it was like a 14-hour print. Once I was happy with the orientation, it was time to set up the supports. Now, once you enable the supports, the only thing I changed was the type. I changed it to tree auto, and everything else I actually left at its default. Now, I did watch a couple of videos and they do recommend adjusting the threshold angle to about 15, but I kept it at the default of 30. And as you can see, it came up actually quite well, so I was pretty happy with that. With the live view, you can always go back and adjust the settings so it cuts down the amount of supports or just where you need to have the supports. Once I was happy with that, I sliced the model, which took a couple of minutes. Then it gave me the option of choosing the type of filament that I could use. I have 4 different filaments set up on the AMS spools, and I chose to use black, and I also enabled the time-lapse camera. I then hit the send button, and then it took me into the device window. Now from this area you can monitor what the printer is actually doing. On the right hand side you can see the spools being selected as black, and then you can live view what's going on, which is a really cool idea. My A1 printer is in a completely separate room, so it makes it really handy to see what's going on. I don't have to forever be walking to the room, just check out the camera. And after my 14 hours, this is what I got. It's such a great result. It's almost close to resin quality, and the supports came off really easily. I was so impressed with the quality that I started printing all these accessory things. Bambu Labs has this great section on the website called Maker World, and people just upload all these STL files. And the great thing is they're all free. Not only do they do things like toys and household accessories, they also do upgrades for your 3D printer. This is a really handy accessory case from Maker World. For the primer, I'm using some of this Ghost Grey from Vallejo, and just a nice even coat. This is some dry brushing paint from Ammo called Light Grey. I use my Golden Maple dry brush set for the dry brushing, and I bring out the detail with this fine dry brushing technique. Here I'm using a combination of the pale flesh and the glazed medium because I want to create more of a contrast paint. Man, there was a lot of individual suckers there to paint. I then created a lighter shade of that colour and dry brushed it to bring out all the detail I possibly can. And just to add a bit more visual interest, I thought I'd run a streak of red colour the whole length of those tentacles. Scuba Diver gets a simple coat of flat black. And it was at this point I realised the Scuba Diver doesn't actually have an air hose going from the mouthpiece to the tank. So I'm using a bit of wire here to create that hose. Snipped off a little bit of moulding, bit of bending, twisting, and I was able to just super glue it into place. Now to add a bit more strength, I also added some UV resin from Let's Resin, a small little dollop on there, and a 5-second hit with the UV torch, and that just made it a little bit stronger. Then painted that flat black and gave the whole thing a dry brush of some dark grey. The tank, mouthpiece and the valves get a coat of silver paint, and a bit of fresh colour for the hands and face. So far so good. I think the diver came up really well. Here I'm just working out the placement because the whole idea is the diver's about to break the surface and the tentacles appear ready to pull her under again. Here I'm using some 3mm acrylic sheets, and this will be the little box that I make to hold all the resin as I do the pour. And to cut to size, I'm just scoring the edges about half a dozen times, then snapping it. Really easy way of doing it. My good old cordless hot glue gun to stick the tentacles into place. Now I've already worked out the orientation, so there's no mucking around, that goes straight in there. Right here is where the decision that I took would create so much drama for me, coming up very shortly in this video. I decided to use hot stick instead of the usual silicone, just to try and save a bit of time, because normally you've got to wait About 24 hours before you can start doing a resin pour. I had done 2 passes with the hot stick gun, but that wasn't going to save me. This is the resin I'll be using. It's a deep pour resin from Less Resin, and you can pour up to 100 ml, about 4 inches. This stuff is great, it's low odour, and plus it's crystal clear when it solidifies. The ratio is 2 to 1. In this particular build, I'll be using 6 cups of the resin and 3 cups of the activator. Like I said, ratio of 2 to 1. Make sure you wear gloves when you're handling this resin. Less Resin also sells these silicone mixing paddles. Because they're made out of silicone, they're really easy to keep clean. And during the mixing process, I try and avoid creating any extra bubbles. I then pour the resin down a piece of balsa wood just to avoid any more bubbles forming at the bottom of the container. After I finished pouring, I went off for about an hour and came back to this. Oh boy, the container had actually sprung a leak. Because of the shiny surface of the acrylic, the hot stick just didn't get a good grip onto the surface, so it just pulled away. And like I said at the start of the video, I ended up with Niagara Falls. The resin was looking so good because, as you can see, there's no bubbles whatsoever. But because of my impatience, I just created this drama for myself. The only way I could think of solving this issue was to have 2 separate trays and constantly move it from one to another, then re-pour the leaked resin back into the container. I did that for a couple of hours. Every 10-15 minutes I ended up giving up and using a bit of masking tape, or rather gaffer tape, to try and squeeze it together again. And actually this did help. During this whole process, I was thinking to myself, how am I going to save this project? Because I didn't want to lose on this particular build. So I was trying to work out a new concept with what I had. In the original concept, I had this idea of building a little box for the resin block to sit on and have an LED light at the bottom. So I created that in Lightburn and then cut it out on my laser cutter. Took me about an hour to design and about 6 minutes to actually cut it out. Then the whole thing was just fitted together with some super glue. This section of the build took me about 5 minutes to put together. Quick and easy. You gotta love super glue and MDF. Even with all the resin dramas I just had, I still had it in my head, I'm gonna save this. Constantly thinking, okay, what am I gonna do? How do I change the concept? These little spaces I'm gluing into place are the little LED holders. It was right about here I came up with the new concept. Still sticking to the jaws theme, I thought, what if the seaside town was being terrorized by a kraken instead of a shark? And this new concept just revitalized me. I was in for it. I found this boat on Thingiverse, but for the scale, it was a bit thin, so I had to do some modifications. I jumped into Blender, and that front platform, I thickened up the railing. I also added some shutters to the windows, because everything was a bit thin, because it's a larger scale model. When you scale it down, some of the parts were just, like I said, too thin. And this is the end result. Much better and a lot more sturdier. And with the new concept all worked out, here is the story. In the peaceful coastal town of Harbour's Edge, terror had gripped the shores. A monstrous kraken had emerged from the deep, dragging fishermen and swimmers beneath the waves, leaving nothing but wreckage in its wake. Desperate to stop the attacks, 2 seasoned sailors, Matt and Roy, took up the challenge. Armed with dynamite and their aging boat, the Seabird, they set off into the open sea, knowing it was their last chance to save the town. As they sailed farther into the deep, the water became unnervingly calm. Hours passed, and just when they thought they might be chasing a ghost, the sea stirred. A dark shape rippled beneath the surface, larger than anything they had ever seen. Then, with a roar that echoed across the waves, the kraken emerged, its enormous tentacles rising from the water like towering columns. One of the massive limbs slammed into the Seabird, nearly splitting the boat in two. Matt and Roy were thrown across the deck, scrambling for their weapons. "Roy, get the dynamite!" Matt yelled, gripping the railing as the boat pitched wildly. Roy grabbed a stick of dynamite, his hands shaking but steady enough to light the fuse. Before he could throw it, another tentacle crashed down, sweeping them both into the cold, dark ocean. For a moment, everything was chaos. Water churning, the Kraken's massive form thrashing above them. Matt fought his way to the surface, gasping for air, only to see Roy kicking toward the boat, the dynamite still clutched in his hand. "Get back on the boat!" Matt shouted. They swam desperately, clambering onto the deck just as another tentacle wrapped around the stern, dragging the boat further under. The Kraken's massive eye glared at them from just below the surface, as if daring them to fight back. "We only get one shot at this," Roy yelled, pulling out the last stick of dynamite. They lit the fuse and hurled it straight at the Kraken's eye. The beast roared, tentacles flailing wildly as the explosive disappeared beneath the waves. For a split second there was silence, then a deafening explosion rocked the sea. Water sprayed into the air, and the Kraken let out a final ear-splitting screech as it recoiled, sinking slowly into the depths, its tentacles retreating. Breathing hard, Matt and Roy collapsed on the deck, soaked and battered, but alive. The water calmed once more and the Kraken was gone. "We did it!" Roy gasped, staring at the empty horizon. Matt nodded, still catching his breath. They had faced a beast and survived, saving Harbour's Edge from certain destruction. But as they steered the seabird back to shore, they knew the ocean always held more secrets and more monsters. For now, though, the town was safe and they sailed back as the unlikely heroes who had defeated the Kraken. I hope you enjoyed the story, and let me know in the comments what you thought of it. And as you can see there, because I was constantly re-pouring that resin, as it thickened, it just created a ton load of these air bubbles. I needed the boat to sit properly in the turbulent waves, so I did that by grinding out a section using my Dremel tool and just dug it out enough for the boat to sink into the resin. And to hold the boat into place, I'm using some of this UV resin from Let's Resin and plonking it around the side, nice liberal little coat, and 5 seconds later it's all hardened with this UV torch. To create said turbulent waves, I'm using some of this crystal clear, and when they say it's crystal clear, they're serious about it. This stuff dries crystal clear. Great stuff actually, and looks really realistic. Here I'm using one of these ice cream sticks that was dipped in IPA just to stop the silicone sticking to it. Now it's time to do some electronics. I've got some of these 3-watt LED filaments, and because they are flexible, I can create this little circle inside my little base. Now I've held them into place with some of that Let's Resin UV resin, hitting it with that torch once again. By the way, that's a rechargeable torch. The silicone takes about 24 hours to fully harden, but it skins in about an hour, so you can paint on it very quickly. I only need 2 crew members, but I do print up a whole bunch, so in case if I ever need them, I've got them. Now I created these in Titancraft, which is a really cool online app. Now I painted these little fellas up, and sorry about the figures being out of focus because I'm just using a GoPro, and yeah, it's a bit temperamental sometimes on little things like that. First dude I super glued into place, and he's stuck down very quickly. And the second one, because he was on an angle like that, falling over the side, I used some of that UV resin once again with the UV torch. With all the electronics done, the light working, all the other components put together, we finally got through this revised concept. Let's go check out the final look. Even with the chaotic dramas that I had with this build, I'm still very happy with the final result. Let me know what you think in the comments, because I'd love to get some feedback. In the meantime, check out these builds that I've done previously, and look, I'll see you in the next build.